I have no idea if this is going to turn out in the final video, but there's this weird white sheen on the frame right now. I don't know if it's just me or if it's actually better lighting outside right now, because it's actually nice out right now. And I should probably go out and do something, but here I am making this video. And recently I watched Circus Maximus. If you don't know what Circus Maximus is, other than a venue in Rome, this is the title of the new Travis Scott film that came out accompanying his latest album, UTOPIA. This actually had a run in theaters, which I think was even for a weekend, maybe. I don't know how long the theater run was, but it was very brief, and it was only in AMC theaters here in America. I don't know if it was shown internationally or not. The hype for this was already there, mainly because this was originally announced maybe 2 or 3 years ago as an A24 collaboration, but even when they put out the poster and the official announcement for this movie, it had A24's logo on the poster. A24 put out something saying that they didn't have anything to do with this, so who knows? There was also hype surrounding the different directors that are involved in this movie. Essentially it is visuals for a couple of songs on the album that is loosely structured, which I will get into later. And we've got some pretty big names attached to it. Nicolas Refn, who had directed movies like Drive and The Neon Demon, has a section. Korine has a huge chunk of the movie, pretty much the second half of the movie. He had made Spring Breakers and Gummo. His next movie also is with Travis Scott called Aggro Drift, which is premiering later this year, which I am very interested in. Other sections of this are directed by Gaspar, who had made Climax and Enter the Void, as well as Valdimar Jóhannsson, who had made the movie Lamb from a couple of years ago. The last big name director on this is Kahlil Joseph. He has done a lot of pretty big music videos, but the biggest thing that I could find is that he had a huge hand in creating Beyonce's Lemonade movie that ended up going on the HBO and was a huge pop culture moment when that dropped. Travis Scott also apparently directed some of this, although looking in the credits for this movie, when it was streaming on Apple Music, because for a while it was playing on a loop, I had to catch it at the right time to see the whole thing. I don't know what Travis Scott directed. I could find credits for pretty much everyone else, and even a couple other people who weren't like listed in like IMDb or Letterboxd, like Andrew Dosunmu, who had created the short visuals for the opening track Hyena. So yeah, there's a lot of elements at play here when it comes to Circus Maximus. Whether or not there is just an overall story, though, that is to be maybe expected. I don't know, maybe if you see these names you think something completely different, which I did. First off, I want to talk about the visuals, mainly because they are fantastic across the board. We are working with pretty talented directors across the board. Korine pretty much directs the entire second half of Circus Maximus, which I will talk about in a little bit since that's a huge chunk of it. But I do want to shout out Gaspar's section for Modern Jam, which honestly, each song that is featured can be viewed as its own little music video, as I said earlier, but the Modern Jam section is crazy. I have not seen any of Gaspar Noé's movies. I had heard and read that Climax is essentially a feature-length version of this short film, so that's fucking crazy. I said in my Letterboxd little diary entry for this that the Modern Jam sequence is one of my favorite scenes of the year, and yeah, I think it is. If it ever goes on anything outside of Apple Music, I feel like that is the thing you should check out over anything. Nicolas Refn directed the visuals for D'Arresto and Echoes, the song that also features Beyonce and Bon Iver on there, and it is what you expect, because from the guy who made Drive, very wonderful drone shots of cars going through, like skull iconography. It's cool shit. Now's the part where I'm gonna get into like the overall structure of this, mainly in the first half, because intercutting between the Hyena and D'Arresto and Modern Jam and Hyena did I say hyena twice? Till further notice. Like, the first half, all of these are cut in between different conversations between Travis Scott and super producer Rick Rubin, and they're talking about, like, it almost feels like coherent rambling from Rick Rubin of where Travis is at in his mind state, mentioning everything that happened with that awful Astroworld tragedy from 2 years ago, where 10 people very sadly lost their lives. This is the point where I was not privy to everything news-related that happened in terms of the Astroworld tragedy and what Travis Scott did behind the scenes. It was all very private. To my knowledge, a lot of the victims' families and everything was settled. To my knowledge, I don't know specifically how much is out there because so much of that was private, understandably so. And other than that one cringy black and white selfie video right from when it happened that Travis Scott did, there hasn't really been a big public response to how he's feeling about this. And this is mentioned in Circus Maximus, but it feels like Travis is very indifferent to it, which, from a psychological standpoint, I feel like that is the best way to go. Although I am glad that he really hasn't done anything truly stupid that I can remember when it comes to this. So I appreciate him for that, although if you say that he is not a good person, I wouldn't exactly defend him. A lot of this structure drops off in the second half of the movie, which essentially becomes a concert film, this section being directed by Korine, and mainly just Travis performing in an pretty much empty stadium in Pompeii, which I couldn't figure this out, but this might actually be part of the ruins of Pompeii. So, wow, a dark parallel there. It's mostly empty outside of whenever a song with a feature came up, with a feature that was on there, like Teezo Touchdown came out when his feature came on. Same for Lean and Sheck West, and also James Blake, who, it's nice to see James Blake on this level of popularity. And he's been popular for a while, but I always like to see it. There's this little section where the only other people that pop up is like robots, like being automated and hitting drums that may or may not be in time with the song that's going. It's a funny little idea. I guess the biggest criticism I have with this is I was hoping that this conversation structure would go on throughout the whole thing. It just kind of drops off in the second half. And I guess I understand why this didn't happen, but I still would like to see some sort of response, like official response from Travis regarding everything that happened with Astroworld. This could have already happened, and I'm just not remembering it, but it was a scary thing that happened. I was hoping that we could at least dive in to see a little more on how he was feeling after this, and the fact that he is still doing concerts and hopes to tour again. I hope that, like, the proper precautions come in, and that at least he cares about it now, which, I don't know. It's a hope. Yeah, I know, the criticism kind of turned into Travis as a person more than the movie itself, but that's just the whole thing with this. I was hoping we could get something more out of the human aspect of this. While I did generally like a lot of what was going on in the first half with this almost surreal structure of, like, the different aspects of how Travis is moving forward in his career, at least that's how I took it. And if that's intentional on Travis's part, since he is the only credited writer on this, maybe that's because of the music, and that's just like how it is since he made the music. But if this was an intentional structure of how he wanted to do it, I'm pretty impressed with that. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on Circus Maximus. I think this is a very interesting experience as a whole. If you are a Travis fan, I'm sure you've already figured out a way to watch it. It also helps that I also like Utopia, the album that this is tied to, and just, I feel like this is just an interesting experience. I don't think I would have paid for this in a theater, personally, But being able to see it, and maybe even some type of home release at some point, because that would be pretty cool. I'm fine with giving Circus Maximus a 7 out of 10. I think this was an interesting little experiment for Travis to do. If it takes 5 years in between projects for Travis, and now if we keep getting something like this every album cycle for him, I feel like this would keep a nice, interesting set of eyes on him, at least from me, because this is a pretty ambitious idea in the term, in the span of like very mainstream music. This is one of the biggest #1 albums this year. And the fact that we have filmmakers like Gaspar, Harmony Korine, and Nicolas Refn in the same sentence as, oh, they're involved in something that has Beyonce and Playboy Cardi and Young Lee. So, I don't know, I think that's pretty funny. Alright, if you have seen Circus Maximus, I don't know if there's a plan right now of what's going to be outside of Apple Music. I have no idea if that loop is still going, but you can find all of Circus Maximus in an Apple curated playlist, but it is not the whole movie, it's divided up into sections. I wanted to watch it as a whole thing. So, if you have seen Circus Maximus, what are your thoughts on it? And if you are a music fan, what's your favorite Travis Scott song? I don't know, I've been really liking I Know from UTOPIA recently. That's been the song I've been going back to a lot. So let me know what you think of Circus Maximus in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!